Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm a little torn between which one is supposed to go. Does anybody know why that might be moving? What? Huh. That's interesting. Can y'all let me know if it flips on? Because I don't know why it's moving on its own.
Settings, because it looks like it has audio too. So.
Yeah, I don't know where the audio might have come from.
Go to slideshow.
Go to.
Slideshow.
Right. Go up.
We got animation.
There we go. All right. Use timings. Do I
Yeah,
unclick that?
Yeah.
And unclick that?
Yeah.
Unclick that?
I don't know.
Well, I don't even know where that might have come from. Thank you. Wow. Okay, so that picture of the cell, definitely want you to be able to label it, okay? The function of a cell, okay? And remember, we are now talking about this tiniest part of us. For the most part, microscopic, okay? So the function of a cell, it has to maintain metabolism. Our body as a whole has a metabolism, but that is because each individual cell has metabolism. So it has to get and use energy just like we do. So once again, I'll go back to our foodstuffs that we consume, and they become the energy for the cell. It has to synthesize molecules. It has to make something. One of the biggest things, every cell of the body has a purpose. The product that the cell makes is a protein. Because the only thing that DNA can code for is a protein. The cells need to communicate. And they have the ability to do that. They not only can communicate from cell to cell, like think of liver to liver cell, okay? They have the ability to communicate with other cells, like immune cells, for example. So they have that ability. The cells can produce a chemical signal and receive a chemical signal. Those ions, the pluses and the minuses. The cells need to reproduce. There are two cells of the body that once they reach their maturity, they will no longer reproduce. They function, but they no longer reproduce. Nerve cells, muscle cells. All other cells of the body will reproduce. And inheritance. Every cell of your body contains a copy of your DNA. When a cell reproduces, that DNA is passed to the offspring. So therefore, the inheritance. The cells that do not pass all 46 chromosomes, they only do half, are the gametes. The the egg and the sperm. The egg and the sperm should only have 23 of those DNA molecules, so that when fertilization occurs, meaning egg and sperm meet, 23 plus 23 gives that offspring 46. Half from mom, half from dad. Is this different from what the organism as a whole has to do? No. So not only do we do this at the organism level, we are now learning each individual cell does this. They amaze me. No matter how many times I've taught this, I'm still always amazed at that tiny, tiny, tiny cell. It's amazing. So, the cell of the body is carrying out those characteristics of life. So now as we move into the parts of the cell, the plasma membrane. That plasma membrane of the cell because it is a bilayer, the phospholipid bilayer. Okay? And it's like that over the entire portion of the cell. It allows for separation of two environments. It allows for the separation from the inside of the cell to the outside of the cell. Because it is existing in a fluid environment, to the outside of the cell is the extracellular fluid, and to the inside of the cell is the intracellular fluid. You'll see this often referred to as ECF and ICF. Because we're in a fluid environment, and especially with salts, as we have them in the body, they break down into their charged particles. In the normal environment, the positive charged particles tend to be more outside the cell than inside. Now, the inside of the cell has quite a bit of a negative charge because of proteins, the product the cell makes. But the plasma membrane allows for the movement of these charged particles so that one is not necessarily more than the other. So the plasma membrane basically allows for the little charged molecules to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, so that it seems like the cell's interior and then the fluid outside are the same. This charge difference, pluses and minuses, is termed membrane potential. Potential means cells have the potential to do something. So if you remember us talking about energy, one of the types of energy that we have is potential energy. For some of the cells of our body, this is very important. Nerve and muscle. Maintaining that membrane potential for nerve and muscle is the reason things work in our bodies. The potential is based on ions, those electrolytes. That's how we tend to know them, as the electrolytes. As you look at the structure of the plasma membrane, in this picture, they're trying to represent the bilayer that I've tried to draw right here. So you can see that we have our phospholipids, because it's a phosphate head, a lipid tail, and when they are in this fluid environment, this is the structure they form. Okay? So, as you look at this structure, there's a lot of stuff in this. So if you're thinking about an animal cell and having this bilayer all the way around it, there's a lot of stuff embedded all the way in it. And then it's got these little chains that are coming off of some of the parts. I know you can't see from where you're sitting, but the structure of those little strings that look like they're coming off, their structures have this structure. Do you guys remember which biological molecule that belonged to? It's okay, give it a whirl. Yes, sugars. So, these strings that are existing, looks like they're just kind of swinging off of this plasma membrane. These are glucose molecules. That's why they make the glycocalyx. This glycocalyx, oh, I was already down. I want you to note, okay, here they're showing this chain coming off of a protein. This protein is embedded into this bilayer. What did we learn about proteins on Monday? Feeling really bad now.
DNA codes for.
The only thing DNA can code for is a protein. Proteins do the work of the cell.